Okay, guys, our review this week is Bioshock Infinite, Burial at Sea, Episode 2. So here we go. Before we start, if you haven't heard this news yet, guys, Irrational Games is no more. Last month they announced the shutdown of the studio and that Ken is moving on with a skeleton crew to work on smaller downloadable titles.
Who's Ken?
So
Ken Levine.
Ken's the creative director and lead writer at Irrational.
Ken Cummings.
Right.
They're from Boston.
He's very famous.
Not anymore, he ain't.
So that's a big deal. That actually gives you a sense of where AAA development is headed these days in the industry.
Yeah, if you screw it up.
Studios cannot sustain these giant budgets anymore.
Yeah,
It's just
everything's
too
going to
expensive and they're-
everything's going to the Oculus Rift now.
Yeah,
Facebook.
or will be, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
So I mean, I can go on about how there were rumors about how the project was mismanaged and how they ran into all kinds of difficulty. Bioshock Infinite had one of the longest development cycles of any recent game in memory here. But that's kind of besides the point. I was just going to mention that because that was a big deal, and they made waves with that when, I don't know, where they were just like, all right, yeah, studio's closing down. This game we're going to talk about in a minute here is our last project, and, you know, that's really it. So, you know, if you've been following us, though, Bioshock Infinite was actually the first game we reviewed here on this show. And, you know, obviously, so the studio closing down is really unfortunate. Now, I'm not going to do our usual graphics, gameplay, sound, etc., because this is a DLC, and we already reviewed the first game and the other DLC, Episode 1, to death. So, you know, it looks and sounds about the same, but they did mix up the gameplay a little bit, and they expanded on the plot. So, in this one, you play as Elizabeth. The emphasis is on stealth, since she takes way more damage from enemies, but she's also got a crossbow with tranquilizer bolts, and she's got some sleeping gas bolts. She can use the vents in this one, which you might remember from the first Bioshock game. And this is definitely a new style of play versus the other two, if you played Bioshock 1, 2, or Infinite. Usually you just run around in the standard FPS stuff, but in this one, definitely different. So you might remember, too, she can pick locks in Bioshock Infinite. So they turn that into a mini game in this one. When you pick the locks, it brings up an exploded view, and then you wait for the pick to move back and forth. It goes across the tumblers, and they got 3 different ones there. There's a neutral one, a noisemaker, and an alarm tumbler. So I think we have footage of this coming up at some point, so I'll try and point that out when it comes up. They introduced a new vigor in this one. They got this new vigor called Peeping Tom, which is pretty much a wall hack, or you can actually use it to turn invisible. There's another one, I think it's called Ironsides. I think it's a new one, but it lets you absorb ammo to enemies that are attacking you. So I want to say, overall, I like the gameplay. Playing as Elizabeth is different, and it's a nice change versus just running around, like I said, stop and pop and shoot everything in sight. And the vigors I mentioned also have upgrades. I forget them all, but the later upgrades for like Peeping Tom, they let you just sit there, so it's a little bit overpowered. You can just kind of hang out and wait for the enemies to come by and knock them out. I can say about the stealth, though, it works okay at first, but towards the end of the game, there were just way too many enemies. I just ran past them. There's no way in hell I had enough ammo or health to take them all on and actually get past them. So a couple things I didn't like. When you die, they've got these unskippable cutscenes now. And I don't know why they did that, because the first episode of the DLC didn't have that, and neither did Bioshock Infinite, so I don't know what that was about. As the cutscene's playing out, it's usually the Lutesses or maybe Booker is just talking about something, but you can't skip it, and it was definitely a pain in the ass, especially later on. So I don't know why they did that. And my main complaint here with this, and this is really the only reason, yeah, okay, here's the lock picking, right? So when you go to do this thing, it brings this up, and then bam, right there, they hit an alarm tumbler. So now when this opens up, now the turret's been activated. So if you hit one of the other ones, the neutral one just does nothing. It opens the door and it picks the lock and doesn't do anything. Or the noisemaker one, which was the blue one, it gives you a bolt that you can actually shoot either at an enemy, or you can shoot it somewhere and it makes a noise and it will actually draw the enemies away from your current position. So there you go, that's the lock picking. Back to what I was saying about my complaints, though. The thing I really didn't like about this, the plot and what they did, where they took the story, it was just freaking stupid. This is where I had problems with it. So they attempted to answer a lot of questions and really just lay out how Bioshock 1 and Bioshock Infinite are related. And I think they mostly succeeded with that, but I really didn't like how certain things played out. what it does do, it gives closure to this entire Bioshock series so far, and it reveals more about how much impact Elizabeth actually had on pretty much everything in this entire franchise so far. So I'll give you an example about one of these things I didn't like, and I got to preface this a little bit. If you're familiar with this game, you can tell that Elizabeth was very carefully designed so that she appeals to the average person that they figured was going to play this game. So, as is the case with a lot of things like this, you're going to get the internet dirtbags and miscreants that like to twist things around and ruin them. And Ken Levine actually came out and said, "Hey, could you guys knock that shit off? You're really killing me here."
Yeah, and that just increased the occurrence of internet dirtbags doing that sort of.
Which was the worst thing he could have done.
Terrible idea. Yeah.
That just made him do it more. So, what I'm getting at here is there's a part in this game towards the end where, as Elizabeth, you're playing, and Elizabeth is getting interrogated, and you're just gonna sit there and watch it. And the whole time I was just sitting there thinking, is this really necessary? I couldn't believe they actually did this. So if Ken Levine wants to complain about internet a-holes putting Elizabeth into distasteful situations, and then the last product his studio will ever release ends with her getting her head caved in with a wrench, that seems a little bit contradictory to me. And that was my issue right there. Really, the events at the end of the game, I hated it. So I'll sum up here. Yeah.
You play it.
Spoilers. It doesn't matter.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Trust me, that's not really a spoiler.
That's enough for me.
Like I said, all right, I want to wrap this up here. My problem wasn't with the gameplay. Everything in terms of the gameplay was great. I just really didn't like where they went with the plot. The first one, Burial at Sea, I liked it way more. I thought it was better. But whatever, this is how they ended it. So let's put up the scorecard. There you go. This one's for the fans. So yeah, I'm going to say you probably don't want to have, I don't want to say you don't have anything to do with it, but really you only need to play this if you're really invested in the Bioshock universe and you want to see, the last thing and the last piece of the story here. I didn't like it, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. They do it, like I said, they do answer a lot of questions. It's just I did not like where this went at the end. So there you go.
So let me ask you this, Chris. I was a big fan of Bioshock Infinite, but I haven't played any of the DLC. Should I just leave it at Bioshock Infinite, or do you think that this is something that I should play if I was a fan of the series? Like if I was a big fan of Infinite, am I gonna like this?
You'll like the first one for sure, I think.
Yeah.
It's just the second one, I'm not sure. I didn't like it. And I've seen differing opinions too. I think it's on the second one here, it's a little bit of both. Some people really like what they did, and then other people completely hate it. So I'm in the latter camp. I did not like it. I didn't think it was good. And again, the gameplay, no complaints on the gameplay. The gameplay was great. It's just the plot and where they took the story, no good. Sorry.
I haven't had a chance to play the Burial at Sea DLCs yet, but let me ask you this. Is the second game, is it all stealth with Elizabeth? Is the only gun you're using is the crossbow?
You actually have an option. You don't have to stealth the guys if you don't want to.
Okay.
She has. I think you should have been able to see it in the gameplay, but you can do if you're able to sneak up on the enemies, you can knock them out with the.
Yeah, I saw that on there.
But it's probably preferred that you have to use stealth.
Do they really try to push you in the direction of stealth in this game? Because that seems kind of like a weird transition to make a full stealth DLC when all the other games there maybe have been bits where you could hide from enemies, but it was all about
it's like straight action,
taking cover.
For the whole franchise, I feel like you've never really had to rely on any kind of stealth capabilities.
Yeah,
not really.
It's
a random thing to throw in for the very.
It's
end.
Two things really. At the beginning, they play up how she, if you remember from the first game, they pretty much force her to kill. What's her name? I forget the character's name, but they force her to kill. One of the other characters, so she doesn't murder the kid there, and they play that up in this. They say, well, Elizabeth doesn't she's not like that. She doesn't want to just kill people that are in the way. So they give you the option though. So you do have the regular. You can use the traditional guns when you're playing as Booker.
Okay.
But this one is more. You have the option to stealth, and. Oh yeah, she takes way more damage. That's the other thing.
Well, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So if you try and take the dudes on and they start hitting you, you're gonna get in trouble fast.
Okay.
Right.
That kind of reminds me of when you played Ellie's section of The Last of Us. She took way more damage than Joel did.
Yep. All right, so there you go, guys. That's Bioshock Infinite. Barry, let's see episode 2.